Hi everyone, welcome back to Random Tasks. Today we are starting a new video series which is based on my Saab 9.3. This is my 2001 Saab 9.3 Aero. Just picked it up over the weekend and very happy with it. It's my third Saab 9.3, so I know what to expect. Overall, it's in very good condition, only 64,000 miles, but there are a couple things that need to be sorted out. Mainly the stereo. So inside we have the stock Saab stereo system, CD player, radio, pretty basic. The problem I currently have is that only 2 of the 4 speakers work. So currently the dash speaker in the driver's side corner and the rear left speaker. Those are the only ones that work at the moment. They are original speakers. I did look at them under the grill, and for a 21, 22-year-old car, as you would expect, they're pretty worn and dry and old and should be replaced. So the rear speakers are fairly simple. I'm going to replace the rear speakers with new 6x9 speakers. Very easy to get to, nothing really to write home about. The front is a bit more interesting. So these cars came with 2 different levels of audio systems. I have the base system, which only has 2 3.5-inch speakers in the corners of the dash. There are also, on the higher model stereo systems, there are 6.5-inch woofers in the doors. So my car has the speaker grills, but no speakers. So the woofers in the doors are powered by a separate amp that is hidden behind the center console. I don't have that, but the grills are in the door. There's still holes in the door themselves for the speakers. So my plan is to get some 6.5-inch component speakers. So those are speakers that have the separate woofer, separate tweeter, and a separate crossover. I will mount the woofers in the door and mount the tweeters where the 3.5-inch speakers go. Now, the fact that I have 2 non-working speakers means that either there's an issue with the speakers, an issue with the head unit, or an issue with the wiring. I did the normal thing. I just checked to see if there's any loose connections, and there aren't any. It could be a wire that's maybe corroded over time, or it could be the head unit. I'm going to bypass all of that. So I've ordered a 4-channel Class D, so digital amp, that I'll be installing in the car to power the new speakers that I'm putting in. I will be connecting that amp to the stock head unit. So this head unit has a built-in line level output that I can use as the input for the amp. So I'll be bypassing the normal speaker outputs on the current head unit, and I'll be installing new speaker wires to all the new speakers. So I'll be bypassing the original car wiring, so eliminating 2 problems, plus I'll be replacing the speakers themselves. So if the issue is currently that the speakers themselves are defective, then that eliminates that problem. I'm also going to be upgrading the head unit itself to modernize it. I'll be adding an auxiliary input. That was not something that was ever offered by Saab on this generation of Saab 9.3. And I'll also be putting an add-on DAB unit, so it's a digital audio broadcast radio, which has hands-free Bluetooth functionality, so it'll be a microphone as well. I want to use the existing microphone grill that exists up there, which I think was if anyone ordered OnStar as an option. I think that was the reason why that was there. Or it could have been the original phone functionality of this radio. Either way, the plan is to bring this into the modern age, and I'll be starting by sorting out the speakers. So the dash speaker is really easy to get to. You just basically take a screwdriver, pry up the grill carefully, pops up. And the speaker, as you can see, nice and crusty, held in by 2 T25 Torx screws. So the speaker comes out very easily. I'm going to be using this speaker to make a template for a custom mounting bracket that I need to make for the tweeters. The tweeters, as you can imagine, are a lot smaller than this 3.5-inch speaker. So I'll be using some ABS plastic just to mock up a little bracket to mount the tweeter. So with the speaker out of the car, I want to make a template to mount the tweeters for the front dash. So I have a piece of scrap ABS plastic and I've glued a piece of paper to it to make it easier to draw on. So simply place the speaker over it, just outline it, and make sure to mark where the holes are. Okay, now the second one. Okay, so now I can cut this out with my jigsaw and then eventually figure out where exactly to mount the tweeters. Okay, I've already cut out the first template. Now time for the second. There's another one done. Just need to clean that up with a bit of sandpaper because the heat from the blade melts the plastic a bit. But otherwise that's good. So once I get the tweeters, I can drill holes for them and mount them in the center. Okay, time to put the holes for the tweeters into the templates that I made. So got a 1.5 inch hole saw. And 2. So I removed the glove box and the side panel on the center console, and to my surprise, there's an amp, which means that there might actually be speakers in the doors, which is a surprise. The amp is clearly not working, as there's no sound that come out of the doors. I'm gonna test it with my meter just to see if there's power coming to it. If not, then obviously I'll have to check for a fuse. Regardless, I will replace that with the new amp that I've ordered, and I might as well take advantage of the power supply and probably mount the amp in the same spot. But yeah, well, I was not expecting to see the amp behind there. There's also a plug here that was just not connected to anything, which was a bit odd. It was just stuck against the side panel. So we'll see what that's all about. But I initially moved the glove box because it would make it a lot easier also just to do the wiring to the dash speaker, and also so I can get behind here to mount the crossover for my new speakers. Glove box came out relatively easily. There's a little bit, there's a fastener here, otherwise it was mostly T25 screws, and one 10mm bolt here. And then there was an air duct that goes across here, which I've just temporarily removed to make it easier. So let's start testing that amp. So I checked it with my meter, and there is 12 volts going to the amp, so I'm not sure why there's no sound coming from the speakers. I'm gonna pull the radio out and just see if the DIN plug was actually plugged in the back. There's a preamp output there's a connection is this DIN plug here. So maybe that was the problem. We'll see. Okay, time to take door panel off to get to the speaker behind there. There's one of these little pop fasteners back here. You need a panel removal tool and just a small screwdriver to press in. There's a T30 screw behind there. It's a little trim bit you have to take off. Then you just get a small screwdriver or a panel removal tool get in here. It comes off. And some, at least 2 other T30 screws there. And a couple down here, plus 1 up here. And once you have the screws removed and the clips and everything like that, it snaps out, and then remove it like this. And put it somewhere safe. And there is the speaker that I'm going to be removing and replacing with a new one. Just want to point out how brittle these speakers are. I barely touched these and taken that foam off, and the surround just crumbles. So even if these had been connected properly and were actually working, they would sound awful. I just removed the door panel from the driver's side, and look at the condition of this speaker in here. Even if this was receiving some kind of signal, some kind of power, it wouldn't make much noise. The surround is just completely disintegrated, and that was without me touching it. The rear speakers are pretty easy to get to. You need to basically remove screws here, 1, 2, 3, plus this piece here, and there's another screw on that side, and then you can remove the panel quite easily. So once the speaker is exposed, you can see that it's held in by some more T25 screws. This one in particular is a bit of a pain to get to, but otherwise comes out easily. Okay, now the speaker is out. The old wiring connection is here. I may or may not reuse the existing wiring, haven't decided yet. So both sides have now been done. Okay, so I got the new Pioneer amp mounted in place. I took some scrap metal I had to make a bit of a mounting template that uses the mounting holes that were there for the old amp, and the new amp secures to that. And I'm gonna try to reuse the wiring where possible as well. So I'm making some progress here. So I'm doing some prep work. I mounted the new woofers for the doors into the original housings. I did need to modify these slightly to make it work. So you can see on this one, there are these ridges kind of go around. So what I did was I took my razor, my utility knife, and just sliced off maybe about 1 millimeter or 2 on each one. And then that was just enough for that speaker to fit in. And so I'm gonna prep that one, and then the woofers will be ready to be mounted in the door. So I also mounted the tweeters into the brackets that I made. So they dropped right into that 1.5 inch diameter hole. And then they have this little kind of mounting bracket that comes with them so that it fits nice and snugly. Okay, so I'm ready to put the tweeters in. Got the wires connected with the glove box removed. It's pretty easy to fish the wires up there. So I'll just put that in place and then screw it in. So screw it in. So all I need to do is just pop the grill back in. Simple. So the tweeters are done. On to the door. Okay, speakers are in the front doors. The other side too. And I've got everything connected here at the amp. It does look a mess, but once I know that it's working, I will clean it all up. I'm not going to check the rear speakers yet, or at least put them in yet. I'm just going to turn it on and see if the front speakers work. Excellent. I've got all 4 front speakers working, so that's a good sign. I am using the preamp outputs from the radio rather than the speaker outputs to feed the amp, but everything works so far, so excellent sign. Just need to install the rear speakers and connect them, and then hopefully they will work. So I've started installing the rear speakers now. The factory speakers just sat on top. The rear speakers, the basket is a bit too, the new ones anyway, the basket's too large, so I have to mount them from underneath, but luckily there's plenty of room, and the carpet here, you can just pull down here so it's easy to access from below. So quite straightforward, and they come with this nice kind of flush mounting ring on the bottom, so be no issue with the grill either. Okay, we have success. All 6 speakers are working. In the next video, I will be installing an auxiliary input on this radio and a DAB add-on unit. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.